Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Recorded by Richter, back with a brand new music segment for you. This is one that I've been working on and talking about for a long time now, and this is my piece on Little Simz. I'm going to give you a little history on Little Simz as an artist and as an actor, and then I'm going to deep dive into her brand new album that was out in June, and that's called Lotus. So I'm not going to waste any of your time. Let's get right into it. Little Simz is a rapper and an actor from London. She started releasing music independently in 2010 at just 16 years old with 5 mixtapes and 4 EPs, leading to her debut album, A Curious Tale of Trials and Persons. In total, she's released 6 LPs, 7 EPs, and 5 mixtapes in her first 15 years as a recording artist. At the same time Little Simz started dropping music, her acting career began with her role as Vicky in the BBC children's show Spirit Warrior at 16 years old. She then went on to another role in a comedy drama series called Youngers in 2013. Shortly after this, Simz would start pursuing and investing herself in music with incredible focus. In 2010, Simz drops her first mixtape, Stratosphere, which got her some radio play. In 2011, she drops Stratosphere 2. In 2013, she drops Blank Canvas, which caught the attention of Jay-Z and was released on his website and also Bandcamp. In that same year, Simz dropped XYZ. In 2014, she really started going ham with the releases, dropping mixtape Edge in June. And in August, Simz would start a small EP series, building her audience towards her debut album, starting with Drop 1, which is 4 songs long. In September, she released Drop 2, which is 5 songs. And in December, she released Drop 3, which is 6 songs. In January of 2015, she dropped a collaborative effort, The Theory Of, which is a group she formed with other artists, often featured in her music, consisting of her, Josh Arce, Chuck 20, and Tila Arce. And in May of 2015, she released Drop 4, just months before her debut LP. And I think that this was such a smart and incredible way to approach things for Little Simz, because this is a great way of building a fan base and getting people to take interest in your music. Not overwhelming them with music, but giving them little bits here and there. I think that's a great way for young artists who are starting out and maybe can use what Simz did here as a model. Now, in September 18th of 2015, we get Little Simz' debut LP, A Curious Tale of Trials and Persons, featuring multiple producers. This album played with themes of feminism and sonically drew influence from many different styles of music, including grime. If you're unfamiliar with grime music, it's a genre that came out of London in the early 2000s, which essentially combines drum and bass music with hip hop. It was also influenced by the sounds coming out of Jamaica and the Caribbean with dancehall. Just 2 months after her debut album, she drops her next mixtape in December, which featured artists from her previous works, as well as US artists on the rise like Isaiah Rashad and Sir, 2 TDE artists who at this point are alumni and well respected. In December of 2016, Stillness in Wonderland drops, featuring multiple producers and fellow artists, including Chronix, Sir, Sid from the Internet, Chip, Getz, BB, Tila, Josh Arce, Chuck 20, and on the deluxe the following year, you'd have a batch of new songs, one including Bad Bad Not Good, which is a Canadian jazz fusion band that I'm a really big fan of, and I just saw live here at the Masonic Temple with Baby Rose with my girlfriend over the winter. In the 2 years in between the deluxe album and her next LP, Gray Area, Simz would be cast in the Netflix series Top Boy and would begin filming that year. This was also the time period when I really started paying attention to her music, after I saw Little Simz cover the Gorillaz' Feel Good Inc. on Australian radio show Triple J. They have a YouTube series called Like a Version, where she played bass and sang that cover on there. In March of 2019, Simz released her 3rd LP, Gray Area, produced by Inflow. Gray Area would start one of the greatest creative runs in hip hop in my eyes. It was around this time that she started working exclusively with producer Inflo, who went on to create Salt, whose members appear on this album and have showed up in her previous works. Cleo Sol, Chronix, Michael Kiwanuka, and as well as the incredible Swedish electro pop band Little Dragon, who I've also had the pleasure of seeing live. I'm a big fan of them. They performed at St. Andrew's Hall, which I've talked about on my channel quite a few times, and I was really excited that I was able to see them. In 2020, she released Drop 6, which is another EP featuring various producers, and this serves as a bit of an appetizer to her fourth LP, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, produced again by Inflo in September of 2021. Now this album includes guest appearances from Cleo Sol and Oben Gayer. Like the album before, Gray Area was nominated for a Mercury Prize as well as several other awards, this time winning and also garnering her widespread critical acclaim. Simz has made a real name for herself by this point in her career, and it was her first album to land in the top 10 on the UK album charts at number 4. Sometimes I Might Be Introvert was followed up by No Thank You in 2022, again produced by Inflo. This is Simz' 5th LP and was released December 12th of 2022. This album played with themes of music industry conflict, finding yourself, and spirituality. It received critical acclaim, landing on a lot of people's best of the year list, including myself, with my podcast that I do with E-Man, Beats, Brews, and Points of View that you can check out on our other channel. It was also nominated for and won various awards. And I have a pretty personal connection with this album here because around this time is around the time in my life personally I was starting to get sober. So I had quit drinking, and one of the ways that I was doing that was by going on these long runs in the country, and there was 3 albums that I was listening to very heavily at that time on these runs. One was No Thank You, another one was Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and a third one was Slugs of Love by Little Dragon. Okay, in between No Thank You and her 6th LP, Lotus, the one I'm here to deep dive today, she released another appetizer EP, Drop 7, in 2024, which was featuring various producers, and on June 6th of this year, Lotus arrives. And Lotus would be her first departure from producer Inflo for an LP since 2016, was the last time she did a project without him. It instead featured production from Miles Clinton James, who is best known for producing London-based jazz Afrobeats fusion band Kokoroko. It is said that Simz was already started on a new project with Inflo when their financial conflict started, and the album was ultimately scrapped, which will heavily influence the subject matter on Lotus that I'm going to get into. Before I get into this, the symbolism behind the lotus flower is transformation, and it will be a heavy theme on this album. So let's get into the project track by track here. With song 1, you have Thief. Thief starts with a reverb guitar chord followed by a deep bass groove to introduce you to the feel of this track. Now, based off the title alone, you can pretty much gather where this song is headed. Prior to the album's release, it was announced that Little Simz was suing her longtime collaborator, acclaimed music producer, musician, and friend, Inflo, the artist that produced her last 3 full-length LPs. According to The Guardian, Simz alleges that Inflo failed to repay on a loan of £1.7 million in total, which is a little over 2.2 million US dollars. So given that information, the title Thief pretty much lets you know the subject of the opening song. The guitar and bass line are sort of menacing to match the energy of what Little Simz is talking about and is going to dive into topically. She is going to set this song up in a chronological order of events starting with June 4th. She alludes to a person who is unknown so far at this point, preying on her downfall, but there is context clues to who she's speaking on. First one comes with the lyric, "Why is this Gemini hating?" Inflo was born June 4th, which indeed makes him a Gemini. The next coming with the lyric, "You talk about God when you have a God complex. I think you're the one who needs saving." That's the second clue. For context, Inflow started a band called Salt in 2019 that often plays with themes of spirituality and religion throughout their catalog of music. Salt also is part of the lawsuit in general because, according to the article, Simz loaned him $1 million for a Salt standalone concert. She then says a few lines later, "Your name weren't poppin' until I worked with you," adding a whole lot of S's. And she kind of like staggers the S's in the production choice here, which I think is like kind of like the way of censoring out the word salt. And this is followed by a hook that says thief, and you know what it means, selling lies, selling dreams. Musically, you have excellent guitar and bass and drums creating a bit of a punk rock energy matching the way Simz is singing the hook. The next verse features a series of questions about his motives before the next lyric that makes it clear who she's speaking to. She says, "I'm lucky I got out now. It's a shame though I really feel sorry for your wife." Inflow is married to R&B artist Cleo Sol, who is a frequent collaborator of Simz and also a band member of Salt. We then get into the next date in her timeline, June 15th, where she states her brain is fried. The person I've known my whole life coming as the devil in disguise. More religious references, cleverly linking the subject matter. Then you get to the hook again, and the third verse continues with more therapy for Simz. She's expressing all the things she's been stewing on, all the moments of clarity in thinking back to their relationship and the ways that she was manipulated in the situation. She then states, "Your company going downhill, thank God I never signed a deal." Inflow has a record label called Forever Living Originals. She then goes on to detail the ways in which this fractured relationship weighed on her as a person and how difficult her recovery in making music was from it and how exploited she felt before again arriving back to the hook. She clearly had a lot to unpack here because in the era of very short songs, especially out of hip hop, Simz has 4 verses in this song. The final verse gets to Simz blaming herself, but realizing this is a product of abusers and the psychological torture that they put their victims through, before arriving at the final date in the story, which is June 20th, in her therapist's office. This is where she's unpacking everything that happened before finally taking her power back and sort of hollowing at the moon in the final hook. From Thief, it goes right into the drum part in Flood, which is the first single released for the album. I would like to point out that all the instrumentation on this album feels like it's played live in the studio and not programmed. I don't know that for a fact, but that's just kind of how it feels to me. This song features Oben Gayer, who has collaborated with Simz in the past, and also Moonchild Stanley. After the drum pattern part that starts the song, you have the singing part out of Oben Gayer that goes, "As I walk this wicked ground, keep me away from the devil's palm." When Simz starts rapping, her vocal performance is more subdued and downplayed, but topically feels like a continuation from Thief. She is definitely rapping about being taken advantage of, but the energy has more of a taking my power back sort of feel. And after all that soul searching and grief, she's found herself again and kind of feels like the rebirth directions of Simz is going to go in musically. Musically, the song is pretty driven by the drum pattern and goes on to feel less directly aimed at Inflow, but anyone who has doubted her along her journey. After a few short verses and the returning hook from Oben Gayer, he and Moonchild start singing in Zulu that I'm not even going to attempt to butcher for you, but what translates to, "No one is on my level, dog. I do not play with kids." Then you get into verse 3. Verse 3 is a 6-point numerical list of rules that she's come up with in navigating through the music business going forward, before getting to the final hook, followed by the Zulu chanting again, which its final words mean, "I am the light." Song 3 is Young, which is the second single released from the project. The song abandons the intense seriousness of the opening 2 tracks and lands at a very fun punk rock satirical track that opens with driving bass lines. I believe Simz might have played herself. I don't know this for a fact, but she plays on that cover of the Gorillaz, and she also has a line at the end of the song that says, "I just want to play my bass here." She raps this song in a bit of a posh flavor to how she's delivering the vocal. She nods to Amy Winehouse in the song, which is something that I enjoyed, and the overarching message to me throughout is the priorities of us when we're young in our 20s and living pretty carelessly and selfishly, which I can relate to very much in my own story of, alcoholism and coming out of that and making amends with the things that I've done and the way that I was living. The hook sings, "Living out your wildest dreams, yeah, we're just young and dumb, no responsibilities, don't care for anyone." Now track 4 has a much more relaxing pace and overall vibe to it. It features singer Lydia Kiddo, and it starts with some rim shot percussions before going into a piano-legged track by Simz rapping about the importance of self-care and taking a break and getting in touch with yourself and your roots. She's talking about going to Jamaica with her boo and her friends, and it feels good to be able to do that coming from humble beginnings. By the time you get to the hook sang by Lydia, it's clear she's dedicating this one to her significant other. I'll be honest though, I couldn't help but to think that this one, if it were prior to her beef with Inflow, might have been sang by Cleo Sol, because it's kind of the vibe of the way that it's sang. No disrespect to Lydia though, because she has an outstanding performance on this and I don't want to take anything away from that. The refrain rings out, "Only love in my heart, my only lover, all about you." Now song 5 is the third single released from the album called Free, and I absolutely love this song. It's got 3 different sections using an Afro rhyme scheme. The first verse built around the word love, the second building off the word fear, and the third is the word free, separated by a chorus that sings, "Wishing the love would set us free." The first verse dictating how everything you do and pursue in life should come from a place of love. I love Simz' lyrics on this song. It's beautiful. A lyric I really like is, "Fear can be exposed in abundance of wealth, and it creeps in when you're not loving yourself." I'll be honest, this song has made my eyes well up a couple times while listening to it, among other tracks that I'll get to later. I think that it hits the mark very much, and she really delivered on this one. The last verse is free, and it's crafted perfectly. It has a voice from the chorus repeating the word free and using an interpolation of free to also use 3. And it has Simz rapping around it, and I love her execution on that. It's just really beautiful. Track 6 is very slow and soft, but a gorgeous song called Peace that features who I think is one of the most brilliant vocalists of our generation. And that's Moses Sumney. And it also features the incredible Mira May. The track list came out for this project before the album, so I was ecstatic to see Moses on there. It was something that I was really looking forward to, and he really delivers on this song. Musically, it's driven by an acoustic guitar strumming while a repeated refrain lightly sings in the background. I've got to find some peace of mind. When Simz starts rapping, I think it's pretty clear that the song is her reflecting on the last 15 years as a performer and the ups and downs along the way. Piano keys join the acoustic guitar during her first verse, but no drums on this track. The hook comes, or no drums to this point at least. The hook comes in and is saying gorgeously, "Don't be afraid when you're falling, trying to find yourself along the way, don't miss your calling, you're calling." The second verse is some gentle advice about chasing your dreams. Some light percussion comes in right before Moses sings the final verse, and man, he doesn't disappoint. He shows off his super impressive vocal range while singing about how we chase after other people's lives online and how that can be damaging and cause sleepless nights. Then you get into a bit of an emotional healing about generational trauma. Then Mira finally comes in and sings this beautiful part about the importance of healing and letting go of things you can't control. Then song 7, we arrive there, and it's a much slower pace as well, and it's a song called Hollow. And this feels like Simz is returning to speaking on her situation with Inflow a bit and how much it let her down and broke her spirits. The instrumental on this song is very orchestral and stunning. It almost feels more like a film score than a song. I love the way Simz is rapping on this song. It's hard to put into words, but it's such a perfect performance reflecting on the relationship and what it taught her about herself. There's a lyric that says, "You taught me to be weary of the sharks, then became one." What can anyone truly expect from a day one? She closes the song with the lyric, I accept life has its ways, but I don't have to forgive to finally be okay. The ending of Hollow sets up track 8, Lion, perfectly, because now it gets back to a more uplifting, almost Afrobeats inspired song called Lion, featuring Oben Gair again. The song plays like Simz picking herself back up, lifting her head up, and pumping out her chest a bit, and I love this combination of songs. The song is full of positive self-talk, and I feel like it's a perfect juxtaposition between the previous song, Hollow. The hook sings, oh, don't break your neck, looking for something like this. You will never find something like this. And another lyric begins, understand that I am Lauren in her prime when you see me. And I like this because it kind of feels like Simz talking her shit a little bit, and I feel like she deserves to do that. In song number 9, you get the next feature that I was incredibly happy to see when the track list was revealed. And this one is Enough, featuring Yukimi, who is the singer of the electro-pop band that I already mentioned, Little Dragon. I am just such a fan of them working together. I hope they always work together. I'm a massive Little Dragon fan. They did a lot for my healing as well in my sobriety journey, and I just love everything that Yukimi's about. She's such a peaceful presence. Her voice puts me in like such a great state of mind, so I really love it. This song is called Enough, and it's really cool to me. It has a punk rock energy in both the instrumentation and the vocal performances by Simz and Yukimi. The song presents as frustration and reaching your boiling point with a person or situation. When the hook comes in, it's Simz and Yukimi harmonizing Don't Make Me Pull the Plug. The second verse moves from frustration and being disrespected into realizing your own power and taking it back. There's a distorted singing part by Yukimi at the end of this that kind of makes me believe this song is about internal struggle Simz is having with herself and in her creative process of making music. Because in the interviews for the album, she said that she really struggled with extreme writer's block and being mentally and emotionally spent from the fallout of the inflow situation. Lyrics stating, my lightning strike, need to keep my mind straight. If I lose and put you in your place, nobody can control the movement of the flame. I think I've had enough. Don't make me pull the plug. The next song, Blood, is track 10, and this one has the power to move me to tears. It has a couple times as well. I mentioned that already earlier, and this features Wretch22, who is another London artist who raps and is a member of the grime group Combination Chain Gang and also The Movement. It also features Cash, who is a Jamaican-born artist raised in London who sings the hook. Now this song plays out like an estranged brother and sister phone conversation, and Wretch's character is a version of himself, a successful musician who's been out touring around the world and living life, but who is also struggling mentally and feels lonely and separated from his family. Simz plays his sister back home who hasn't spoken to him in some time. The conversation starts off loving before they get back to airing their grievances and how they've lost touch. I feel like a lot of people can relate to this story. It's really beautifully crafted, and in the end they both sort of come to an understanding after unpacking their perspectives and points of view. The part that gets me choked up is the part when they make each other realize the trauma they've been holding on to, where it starts with Wretch saying we're the same but different, and we came up different. I had to take Dad's whippings and had to shake off prison. And then it gets to Simz and she says, yeah, well, I had to hold Mom crying, so all that pain I ain't buying. Yo, just step outside yourself for 1 sec. You ain't the only one who's got shit suppressed. And then it goes back to Wretch. I ain't the only one that's got shit suppressed. You ain't the only one that's got intellect. I only phoned you because, and then he repeats himself, I only phoned you cause, and Simz says, what? I only phoned you cause I need a friend. And then the hook starts singing from Cash, distance in the dark, I feel we've grown apart. If you want greener grass, you have to water where you are. Man, I almost get choked up just reading it. I don't know, that one just really is moving to me. And then you get to track 11, and the 11th song is a beautiful collaboration between Simz and her longtime collaborator from both her solo music and a contributor to Salt, Michael Kiwanuka, and also the incredible jazz drummer and producer Yusef Days. To me, this song presents his paranoia and the uneasy feelings of being a recording artist and who has now become famous, the toll that it can take on your mental health. That's what she's rapping about in the first verse before Michael comes in and sings, "My pain is a glory. You kept trying to control me, but your God isn't for me, so I'll be moving on." The second verse feels like she's more reassured and reminding herself what she's made of and what she's overcome. It also speaks to the toxic nature of stan culture on the internet. I would also like to mention that the intensity of the music built around her words and Yusuf's amazing drumming in the track. It has almost 3 minutes of instrumentation at the end of the track, which is something I love. It's really gorgeous to have, this instrumental break on a hip hop song like that. A lot of people cut their songs real short, and I really just love that they had this big orchestral ending to it. And then you get into track 12. Track 12 is called Lonely, and it slows down in tempo after that grand ending of the last previous track. And it fits the mood of the subject and energy of the vocal performance that Simz is delivering here. This song is about how lonely she felt in the writing process of her new album when she felt completely empty after everything that transpired. The lyrics go, "Sitting in the studio with my head in my hands, thinking what I'm supposed to do with this music I can't write. Team falling apart and I'm caught in the crossfire. You're selling me lies and saying I must buy. I was lonely making this album until I realized I'm all I need to get through." Simz also goes into a singing part on this, and unlike the beginning of the album, she has a more direct reference to inflow when she raps, "Lonely making an album is tackling all doubt. I'm making it with beep, can I do without?" So I think that she said his name there, but then decided to blank it out, beep it out in the final product of this album. I don't know, maybe to avoid things in a lawsuit or something. But this song and the whole album instrumentally is so strong, and it could hold up on its own, in my opinion. Really, honestly, the whole thing. I said that with the Tyler the Creator project too. If you took all the lyrics out, it would still be a beautiful album instrumentally. And now we're on track 13, the final track, and it's also the final feature on the album, and it features the brilliant UK singer-songwriter Sampha, and I actually had the pleasure of seeing him as well last summer in Royal Oak, which is a neighboring city of Detroit. This song is called Blue. This one has a brilliant flow pattern where Simz is framing the first verse like a series of questions, while you hear Sampha softly singing and humming in the background over acoustic guitar finger-picking pattern. The questions about a series of difficult life situations people might be put through, and she's turning the mirror on you and asking you how you would have gotten through those things. She's asking you to put yourself in someone else's shoes for a moment and think about that with purpose and try to find empathy within yourself. Then Sampha comes in with the hook and sings, "There's a light at the end, carry on. You and I found the break to be strong." And then, how would you feel, what would you do, is the question that Simz keeps asking throughout this verse. And then she brings you through different scenarios and struggles people have to face in the world. It's very moving to me. And at the end, Sampha beautifully sings while you hear an almost haunting singing behind him, ending, "Nowhere near, nowhere near, nowhere near we used to be." Now, that's the end of the album, and I just wanted to say before I get out of here, Lotus by Little Simz again was critically acclaimed, and I believe in my heart it'll go on to win plenty of awards. For me personally, although the year's not over, this is one of the front runners for me. I'm battling a handful of albums that I think are the best. Clips, Let God Sort 'Em Out, McKinley Dixon, Alive. There's a handful of them, but Little Simz is right in that running for me. Time will tell at the end of the year what I'm going to end up deciding to pick, but Little Simz is just such a brilliant artist, and I'm just finding that London has such a strong scene of musicians. There's another artist that I've gotten into recently, Stone, who I want to dive into more of his music. I'm really into Jacob Banks right now. Like, I did a whole piece on Bob Vylan. They just have a strong scene right now, so I want to keep exploring the stuff coming out of London as well as my home in the United States. And that's pretty much where I'm at with it. As you can see, I'm wearing this Barrel and Flow t-shirt. E-Man and I just got back from Pittsburgh, where we were invited to run media and cover a local music festival there that was black owned and had highlighted a lot of black vendors and black artists, and I just thought it was really awesome. They're doing one next year in New Orleans, so I'm really hoping that E and I can be involved in that. If you head over to our Beats, Brews, and Points of View channel, we're going to have lots of stuff covering that festival coming out of there. I'm going to be posting shorts and long form stuff. In fact, E-Man and I are sitting down tonight. We're going to get on live on Instagram and talk about our experience with the festival. So look forward to that, although that will be already out and edited for you by the time you guys see this. So I appreciate everyone for checking this out again. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not, and that's about it for you. And I will see you guys with plenty more deep dives on music and books and art and all of that stuff. So we'll see you guys later. Peace.